Hello, welcome to our SBAC testing support video. This particular video is going to focus on the format of taking any of the CASP tests, basically. So we're going to focus specifically on an SBAC online practice test that will mimic closely the options and selections you'll see when navigating the test yourself. You'll notice on one of these slides being shared with you already or shared with you shortly that there will be an additional support slide towards the end. And on that, there's a link for SBAC Online Practice. Click that, and it takes you right here to the CASP and LPAC website for practice tests. So this is the screen you'll see. It might look a little intimidating, saying please sign in. You might think you're on the wrong site, but you're not. This is just, it gives different people ways to sign in. For us, we're just going to leave it as guest user on. This is going to be a guest session, and you just click sign in. Once this loads, you're going to select your grade. This specific video is geared towards our 11th graders, gearing up for the CAS test. There's a lot of options there for the Smarter Balance practice test. For today, for this video, we're looking at the high school math practice test. Let's click on that, and you'll see a whole bunch of settings. These are all to make the accessibility of the test easier for you depending on your situation and your needs. If you haven't had any additional supports on any online tests, all of the default settings will be fine, and you could just scroll all the way down, or actually just move to the bottom of your screen and hit select. If you have additional needs, that's what these options are for. So you may need sign language support. The presentation can be done in a few different languages, including Spanish. If you need typing assistance, you can have it do speech to text, where it will record your speech as text in some of the writing prompts. It can do text to speech, so it can read portions to you. The translations, some of the definitions could be in different languages. You can add in additional assistive technology to it as needed. You can change the color scheme to help your eyes, or just leave it as it is. You can zoom in and out of different sections. These are already set as on. It allows you to expand passages, items, and line readers. You can change what the mouse pointer looks like. You can highlight things. Also, these are all turned on by default. You can mark questions for review. You can strike through answers that you don't feel are ones that are going to be the right ones to narrow it down. And you can add comments on different areas. One of the tools that will be allowed during this math test is the Desmos graphing calculator. So in general, all the things set for a general testing experience are already turned on that you may need. And if you need additional supports, look through that more. Hit select. Then it brings you to a test your sound page. Go ahead and click play. It plays like a 2-second soundtrack. If you could hear that, you may not hear it on this video, but if you could hear a little jingle, you click I could hear it, takes you to the next page. This is just a review saying, yeah, I looked through my test settings, which is what we just did. And at any time up in the top right of your test, there'll be a help guide if you need reminders of any of these things that we're going over, basically, of how to take a test for this CASP test. So I'm going to hit begin test now. I recommend doing this practice test just for simple practice to begin with, but also to see the formats. But that's what we're going to talk about a little bit now. So we'll go through several of these different visuals, and you also will have access to those on some practice slides accompanying this video. For one of these, this is a multiple choice option. So just diving in here, we're not going over specifics of which one's right. I don't care which one's right at the moment. In general, if you see one that has A, B, C, or D, that's telling you to pick one of the options. I'm just selecting it as an example. For all of these, you have to have something selected in order to hit the next arrow up at the top left. You can also save your progress or you can pause the test. This bar further up shows you how far along in the test you are. On this practice one, I believe there are about 30 questions. Over on the right is where you have those options to highlight a line, zoom out, or zoom into the text to help read it easier. So I'm going to hit next now. Again, it shows you a couple options. I'm going to get us to a different type of style. So on question 3 for the practice test, it wants you to type out equivalent expression after you simplify this big polynomial. So that's where you use this blank, and it gives you an entire keypad with different functions and symbols that you could use, mathematical symbols. These should all be familiar by now. Obviously, the numbers, starting at the top here, if I just typed in a couple numbers, the arrows here, this will allow you to move your cursor in between the numbers, so you can type more or put a multiplication sign or something. This is your delete one of the items, and this kind of undoes that. You can also, that also just goes back to. Then you can put any numbers in. This is an X variable, a Y variable, your plus minus, multiplication symbol, division, the greater than, equal to, less than or equal to, and less than. This is your decimal here, I believe another minus sign. Yep, equivalent to a minus sign. This here will allow you to set up a fraction. This will allow you to set up an exponent. This will be a subscript. I don't know that you'll see those, but it's like if you're trying to denote it's A sub 1 or B sub 2, that's what that would be for. Probably won't use that too much. Parentheses, so open brackets, close brackets. It sets up the beginning and the end. Here's your absolute value symbol, radicals, and to put the radicand underneath. If you have a radical, but the radical is to something other than just 2, like say it's the 4th root, that's where you would use this. Pi symbol, I for imaginary numbers, and then your trig functions here. And we're going to move to another problem style. Here's a word problem style that you read the word problem on the left. It may have a part A and a part B, but oftentimes with these problems, if you see some kind of a visualization on the right, it's asking you to draw a line or put a point. In this case, you're supposed to draw a line. So to draw a line, you click add arrow. They're kind of small up here. So you can either add the arrow, you can delete the thing you drew, or you can go back to your cursor. You gotta click the go back to cursor before it goes back to the cursor. Because right now I have add arrow. So no matter what I do, say I want to go through this point at some kind of an angle. I clicked it to start. I drew it through at whatever angle I'm trying to do, and I clicked it again to stop my line. Now wherever else I click, it's going to start a point and begin a line. If I want to stop doing that, I'm going to have to click. If I want to undo this, I need to click delete, click on the line I want to get rid of. All right, that cleaned it up, and then go back to the cursor. If I want to say move it around, I can hold it and move it around. Or I can click the none button if there was no option to draw the line. That would make sense. So you have to draw or click something on the graphic in order to complete a problem like this and move on. If you see a problem that says enter the ratio means fraction. So you're going to need to be using this fraction. And you can put a numerator and a denominator of some sort. And we'll move on to another style. This style is interesting because it's a word problem. and it asks you to put how many frequency, like the frequency of each of these. So if I click, I want to say there's 365s or 480s or 290s. I didn't read through this. I'm not trying to give you the right answer or not. I'm just showing you different formats here. And that would be how you would answer this type of problem. For this style, it has you try to select a region so it lights up when you scroll over it, and you can pick a region that you think is inclusive of the solution. Moving on to the next problem. When I got to the 10th question, once I entered hit next after the 10th question, it brought me to this page saying I've reached the end of a segment. When this happens, it gives you a chance to, it kind of is a chapter in a book. It gives you a chance to go back to any of these first 10 that you've looked at, and you can hop to them. Maybe you marked it for review or weren't sure and you want to go back to it. At this point, you need to, this is where you finalize this section. Once you're comfortable with what you're going to submit, then you can hit next again. And it gives you a prompt. Are you sure you're ready to go? Yes. Now it loads you to another section. Uh, it may be like a more word problem type question section, and we'll look through this. So, for example, here's another one where it gives you a word problem on the left, and then asks you to drag. So you hold it and you drag which one you think it is to the right. All right. Notice that there's a squared symbol, so there might be other things interacting with the box that you're dragging into. For example, that 2 up there means something. It means they're squaring whatever you're putting inside of here. And again, if you want to delete that, you hit delete, click it, and it goes away. And you can go back to your cursor. Again, click the cursor button, and you can drag wherever you want. This one doesn't have any apparent things to click up here to draw lines or put points or delete or anything like that, but you have to read the little mini instructions on the left every time. In this case, it says part A, click on which one of these steps doesn't belong, basically. So if I thought it was this one, I would click it. That would be my first part A answer. Part B, it says to then work it out and solve for the solution. So of course you have your scratch paper on the side, you're working it out. I don't know what the answer is here, but let's see, you can then click any one of these. It doesn't have them in nice, pretty A, B, C's, and D's or anything to select from. So that's why I'm showing you this one as a different format. And if they, didn't want to switch it up on you enough, here's a similar style problem to the last one we just did, but the way you answer it's different. It asks you, instead of like clicking which one is the mistake, you type in the first box, enter the number of the step where the mistake's made. So it would be step number 2, for example. And then the second part, you enter the correct solution to the problem. So whatever your solution ends up being, it's where you use that familiar keypad down here to type it as you would correctly. All right. So when you're seeing these, if it's not denoting an A, B, C, D, if it's just open blank squares like this, that's telling you could do either 1 or more, or 2 or 3, or down at the bottom, I believe it has a select all option. So select more than one. You don't have to select more than one, but there may be more than one statement that's true. So in other words, don't restrict yourself to just one. You can click the first one and the third one. Probably is a good hint that there may be more than one answer on here. This type of problem is asking you to read through the word problem, and then for each of these prompts, each of these inputs, maybe 4.2 feet or 33.9 feet, is it a reasonable answer or is it not a reasonable answer? So you got basically 6 different questions being put into this singular word problem. So you'll have to give a selection on each of these. Here's a good one to look at. It's another word problem with a part A and a part B on the left here. So you read through it and it prompts you for part A. You can see there's a part A visual here. You got your cursor, your delete button, and your add point. So sometimes it's add a line. This time it's add just a point. If I click add point, That's actually for not this first part. That's for part B. This first part, I'm supposed to just pick 0 through 10. So I need to go back to the cursor here, actually. So part A, I'm actually just picking one of these numbers. Not typing it in, which would make sense, but picking the number off of the options here. If it's not the right number, you go back, you hit delete on it somehow. Nope. Delete. Just a second. Oh, maybe you go back to the cursor. You got to go back to the cursor and select the new one in this case. Over here, though, for part B, that's where you add a point. So click add point, put the point where you believe the correct location is. And again, you have to click delete to make the point go away, and your cursor here for part A. All right, so I guess there's 28 questions on this one. So I put in my final answers here. I'm just hitting next to go to the next one, and it prompts me, you have reached the end of the test. When you have finished checking your answers, click the end test button. All right, so it might look scary, but this code is part of the test. So you hit OK. And then I'm going up here to the top left. I hit end test. Now it prompts me again. You're ending the test. Click yes to end the test or no to continue. Yes. And you still got a couple more screens here. So now I still have an opportunity to go back to from 11 to 28, that second section. If I'm okay with that, I go all the way to the bottom, and that's when you hit submit test. Make sure you submit your test. Are you sure you're submitting the test? Yes, I am. All right, now it's done. It is submitted. Once you hit that, you are completed. Thank you for joining me today. Hope this helped.